Love, love, love. All right, you ready?
Dog. Yes. Let's do it.
All right.
Hello.
Hi. It's super chill. Like,
Okay.
we're super chill. This is my friend,
Hello.
Liz, who happens to be my brother's girlfriend.
I do happen to be your brother's girlfriend.
But you're my friend first.
Yes, I am your brother's girlfriend, yes.
I don't even know if anybody knows I have a brother, to be honest.
Yeah.
Okay, we start with something lighthearted, especially because we get in deep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I actually need this question answered. What is a TV show that you're currently obsessed with? Because I am rewatching Schitt's Creek for the third time.
Oh my gosh.
And
David.
I started 2 days ago and I'm on season 4.
Oh my, I love Schitt's Creek. Super good. TV show. So that's actually really funny that you asked that. I don't really watch TV anymore. And that actually changed. I read a lot more, and that changed because I can't focus very much because of my PTSD.
Which we'll get into. Okay, then if you don't watch shows, if you had to switch lives with one celebrity for one day, what would it be?
Oh my god, that's easy. I would switch lives with probably Adam Sandler. I
Oh.
love him.
Period.
And he's so funny. And he wears whatever the hell he wants. And he's just like living his best life with his friends.
I do think we kind of are the girl versions of it.
We are the girl versions of Adam Sandler.
It's so true. So also wanted to talk about, because I do like talking about the whole being in your 20s and not knowing anything situation.
Yeah.
How long ago did you move down to Chicago?
Oh my gosh, I've been here since I was in college. So I've been here for 8 years. And one thing I can say is, yeah, being in your 20s in the city, totally okay not to know what the frick you're doing.
Because have you had more than one job here?
I've had multiple jobs. I've had jobs where, like, I am covered in ice cream.
Yeah.
And I've also had jobs where I'm like, I need to dress up to the nines to sell, like, $500,000 worth of jewelry to clients.
And, like, who... And, like, I'm so curious to know where I end up. Can you talk a little bit about your job now? Like, not specifically.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. So I can
really
just give,
cool.
like, generics. I work for the city, and what I do is I defend, I guess, Title II of the ADA, which is American with Disabilities Act, and it's for people who need to have reasonable accommodations in the workplace. And I am very passionate about that because I believe that if the world were more accessible, we would not have this idea of people with disabilities, or like the idea that a disability exists.
Yeah, so you're making it not just like physically accessible, but like to be able to do your job.
Yeah, well, to be able to do your job and to be able to do your job with confidence and like knowing that like that you have something that's backing you up.
I love that.
So, like, if you need more time to do something, you can ask for an accommodation. Or if you, like, need a different screen. Or, like, one thing I'm doing right now is actually making physical changes to a building.
Oh.
Because we have a person who is physically unable to access his office. So we're putting in different, like, doors. I'm making changes to the restroom. Like,
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool. Big projects, but, like, really worth.
But you did mention your PTSD earlier.
Yeah.
If you don't mind talking about it,
Absolutely.
We have a very weird thing in common, and that's being obviously affected by
trauma.
Sparkles.
Specifically. Add those sparkles in. Jazz hands.
Literally. Specifically gun violence.
And that's one thing that I really appreciate about you, is that you and I can bond over something so traumatic.
Yeah.
But you still feel my pain and I still feel yours.
Totally. And we can also, like, we're both also people who, like, obviously these things are horrific and tragic and everything, but, like, you know, like, we both have dark humor, and
I love my dark humor.
You need it. Like, what am I gonna do? Sit back and cry all day?
Die?
Literally.
Kill myself? Sorry.
Is that what you want?
You want me to kill myself? No.
No, like, I feel like people do, though, want us to, like, sit, like, be like, after the shooting, like, people, like, I was, like, out and about. My friends were, like, all, like, from our hometown, like, sitting at home and, like, crying. And, like, I was, like, am I crazy for, like...
No, you're not. You're not. The reason I have PTSD is because there was an active shooter at my job. And we were doing a sexual harassment training, or not training, just did a sexual harassment training today.
Just sexual harassment.
So sexual harassment, don't do it. We were doing an investigation, my colleague and I, and he was very upset, and he had a gun with him in his backpack. He went back to his department, and he took it out, but he had a gun, took it out, and I was stuck in my office, and there was no way for me to get out. I was on a call with my boss in Toronto, and I didn't know what was happening. She actually told me, she's like, where are you right now? And I'm like, I'm in the office. And she's like, you should go hide. And I'm like, why? And she's like, there's an active shooter in the building. And I'm like, okay. I took a deep breath. I saw someone else in my office. I pulled her, and we went to, like, it's floor to glass ceiling windows in our office. And I'm like, there's nowhere to hide. I went to this, like, tiny closet. I told her, I'm like, bring a pair of scissors and bring anything you can fight with.
Did you know who it was at this time?
No. I thought it was just some random person coming into our building. And I was hiding there. And I'm still on the phone with her. And she called in our chief HR officer. And like she literally said, what's up, my boss's name. And my boss said, there's an active shooter at the location. And she said, did anyone call the police? And she's like, yes. And then she's like, well, there's nothing I can do. After that, I hung up on both of them. And I kind of like settled in with the fact that I'm gonna die right now.
Yeah.
I texted my dad. He's supposed to come to my building and like meet me up for breakfast or like lunch. And I was just like, you can't come. And he was like, kind of questioning me. He's like, oh, busy day? And I'm like, you can't come. And he's like, Elizabeth, be honest with me, what's going on right now? I'm like, there's an active shooter, and I don't think that I'm going to be able to like see you again, Dad, and I love you very much.
That's so
that
scary.
Haunts me every day, every single day. He's my best friend, and I just, thinking about that really drew me to the point where I'm like, this sucks. And I remember telling the girl, I'm like, you're going to be okay, because if something happens, I was the one on the outside. She was inside the closet. I took the outside by the door. I'm like, I will fight for us.
I was gonna say, I feel like no matter like whether it's like this dangerous of a situation or not, I feel like you're always the person, you're gonna definitely put yourself.
I will put myself throughout whatever it is.
Very selfless.
I will always do it. Like, and I'm in like these therapy sessions now, and I was telling the therapist, I'm like, I just wanted to make sure people were safe. And I feel guilty sometimes that I even played a part, even though I didn't, that I couldn't keep people safe from this person.
Yeah.
But it's not my job to.
No,
that was that person's choice.
Totally. I think that like in situations, like we always think about like the what ifs or like the different things we could have done, but at the end of the day, like these are people who've been finding a reason to do this for a very long time.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting that you said your conversation with your dad, because whenever like something happens to me, like I've had a lot of medical issues, or even like I feel like I'm about to get into a car crash or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not scared for my life at all.
Yes.
I'm scared for like the people on the other side of it. Like,
yes. And this sounds really weird now to say this, but after this happened, I actually decided to write letters to the people that I love.
I'm sorry that happened.
No, I'm actually really, this sounds crazy, but I'm really happy it happened, because now I feel like, now that it did, I don't blame anyone for ever feeling this way.
Yeah.
Mental health is one of those things I always had an idea about, but like, this sounds really bad, and I feel bad for even saying this out loud, but like, I was the type of person that's like, well, if someone with PTSD, like, they're always the people that were like in war, and like, you know, they were abused, or things that like really like happened to them, and like, you know, they'll be fine, and things they can figure it out. Like, there's medication for that and stuff. It's not that easy.
No.
It's not that easy at all.
I had like the summer that the shooting happened in Highland Park, 2 months before that, 1 month before that, my friend had died. Then that happened, and then my mom's neighbors were murdered in her building. And after my friend had passed away, and then I was crying all month. Shooting happened. I didn't cry for 6 months.
Yeah.
Like the response to trauma is so different for everyone, because before that had happened, I was somebody that cried over everything, and then all of a sudden there was nothing.
Yeah.
So because I also saw people before who respond to trauma like the way I did, and I'm like, you have no soul.
Yeah.
So it's just like there's so many different ways to respond to it.
Yeah.
And I just feel like, like my whole life, if there was one thing I knew, it's that I react strongly and then to trauma, and then all of a sudden it was, I can't feel anything. But then what also came with that is like, I don't see the world in color right now. Like, there's nothing. Gray. It's like I just felt like there was a cloud over me.
You can't even feel happiness.
No,
like it's a weird feeling.
I had moved into not this apartment, but my last apartment. Mm-hmm. Like it was the most beautiful view. I lived there for 2 years, and all I wanted growing up was big windows and a beautiful view. And I looked out it was everything I ever wanted. And I looked out at it, and I'm like, why aren't I feeling joy?
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, I need to be back in therapy, because I'm just letting like days and days go by.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that's kind of like the fight or flight.
That is.
And that was my brain protecting me for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a funny situation, because sometimes you just know that you should be happy.
Yeah.
But you can't feel happiness.
Totally.
And it's the weirdest situation, because you would do anything just to feel that happiness you once did, and it's...
Honestly, I'd do anything to feel sad, too.
Yeah.
Like
to feel emotion.
Exactly, and like after the shooting, like it cut off my grieving for my friend.
Yeah.
Who I never like got to fully grieve, because then that happened. I mean, like even while we were in lockdown, because I don't think I talked about it on the podcast or anything, but there was a shooting in our hometown at a parade, and my mom lives in the path of the parade, so I was safe being inside. But then they also told us that he was inside of our building.
Oh gosh.
Which I don't know if he was or wasn't, but
yeah.
The SWAT team was there, and the SWAT team came to question me, and like when I opened the door for them, they all had their guns pointed at me. And so I was like, ever since that happened, it was like zero emotions. It was crazy. And so like once I started working on it in therapy, like all the feelings over, like it took me 2 years to eventually be like, okay, it's time, came back. So like I'm dealing with those emotions and the trauma from those 3 things.
Yeah.
Like now that I'm in therapy.
Yeah.
Which is so crazy, because like you see these people who deal with shootings, and it's like you're like, how do they live? How do they like whatever? And then you're like, there is no one way. I worked with so many family members. I went to DC and worked with a lot of family members who've been affected by mass shootings or gun violence, and everybody reacted so differently. Some people are bawling their eyes out, talking about their family. Some people with a stone face. I don't know. There's like no matter what kind of trauma it is, I feel like I always saw like PTSD as one thing, where like you're triggered by something, and then like you fight, you start like punching shit, and it's like,
and you're angry, and then like you have flashbacks, and it's like, oh my god, but it's not that.
For me, it's just staring. I'm just staring.
You're disassociating.
Which is your brain protecting yourself.
Yes.
And
when I first started my new job, I didn't know that I had PTSD. My company, like my last company, pretty much said that never happened. So they really pushed it to the point where like I just believed in my head that whatever happened, and I need to get over it, and it is what it is. So we kept asking, my colleague and I kept asking, because we felt like we needed to make changes, and we needed to provide information on like what would we do if there was an active shooter in the building. We didn't have any of that,
because we
talk
about
training.
We talk about it so much in schools, but
we don't talk about it at work.
And it's not only the streets and schools, and it's not even like saying like we need more security. It's like we need to know in every building, and it's so sad that it's this way, how to protect ourselves.
How do we protect ourselves? How do we ensure we're safe?
Anytime I go somewhere, my first, like if I'm in
Where's an exit?
Where's an exit? Even when I'm in here, I've thought about somebody comes in, I get them onto the balcony, and then I lock the door from the inside.
Yeah.
Like,
it's just a funny situation. It's one of those things where like, it's sad you have to do that. And when I started my new job, I had a moment. I was walking into work, so I was on the street, and I just started crying for no reason. I was like, why am I crying? And I was like hyperventilating. I thought I was having a panic attack. And I'm like, my boss passed me. I'm like, there's no way I can go into work right now. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to start. I got to my office. I locked my door, and I just started writing things. I have 13 notes. And it's funny that's like, I have all of them. And all of them were like very similar to like, I don't feel like I'm alive. I don't feel like I'm here with anyone. I'm walking amongst people. Totally. But my soul is here, floating, and my body's here on the ground.
That's the gray that I'm talking about. That's the cloud.
That's the dissociating, yeah. And then for me, I was doing that for like 2 weeks. And then I was in like my bathroom one night, and I was looking at the mirror, and I'm like, how are you okay? Like, you were dead. Like, do you know that? And then I opened my shower curtain, and I just imagined myself like dead in the bathtub. And that's when I knew, I'm like, I probably need to go see someone.
There's something happening.
There's something happening.
Yeah, no, it's like you don't really understand out-of-body experience. I remember my first time I ever had this. And, like, I had been, I have anxiety disorders. Like, I started therapy in 4th grade and then was in treatment programs on and off. So, like, I knew I had anxiety. But, like, the first time I remember, like, really disassociating, my parents were getting divorced, and me and my dad were living at my aunt's. And I was like, Dad, I can't wake up. I need you to take me to the hospital. I'm like, they need to wake me up. Like, I did not understand it. And now I get it because I spent 2 years in it.
Yeah.
But I literally got the chills, though, when you said you were walking and all of a sudden you started crying, because that happened to me, too. And honestly, it's the worst feeling, but it was also a relief because I'm like, now I know it's time to heal.
Yeah.
It's starting to start my
now
journey.
It's time to understand, because I was pushing it off for so long.
Yeah.
Pushing off my emotions. I was just going out. I was just trying to live.
Totally.
Because I just wanted to not remember any of those things that were happening.
And I don't know for you, but for me, it was like, at least with the shooting experience, I'm like, I wasn't shot, and I was not in the crowd, so I can't be freaking out about this. I didn't see a family member dead. Like, I was just in hiding, and, like, I was in my mom's apartment. I was fine. But, like, at the end of the day, like, I looked out her window and saw terrible things. Like, of course it's traumatic.
Yeah.
But what triggered it for me was there's different sirens to every emergency vehicle. Mm-hmm. And it was like, there were a million sirens that day. And it was one siren that I heard while walking to work, actually, in West Loop. And I just started crying. Yeah. It's like the floodgates just opened. And
that was it for me, too.
But it was honestly like it was horrible, and it was honestly also like a relief. It was like a release, like, oh, now you can pinpoint what it is.
Now you know what triggered you.
Exactly.
And I feel that completely, because for me it was the same situation where, like, I would see, like, all these cop cars, because when we were walking out of the situation, mm-hmm. I saw the shooter on a stretcher, and he had blood all over him. And I was like, what is going on? I'm like, are they okay? And I didn't put 2 and 2 together that this person did this.
Yeah.
And I was like, why is that happening? And I walked out because I was trying to, like, help the police out and, like, figure out, like, how to help.
Yeah.
And I walked down, there's SWAT cars, there was news reporters, there was helicopters, everyone. And I was like, am I living? Like, is this reality right now? Is this where I am? And that's where my trigger one, I was like, when I hear police sirens, when I hear anything, I can't go there.
Yeah.
There was times, like, when I was with your brother one time, you were getting bagels. And I remember I was like, there was, like, police just swarming to this area we were going. And I'm like, I don't think we can go.
Yeah.
And he was like, we'll just try. we were there across the street, and I just remember I was like sweating, and I was like hyperventilating, and I was like dissociating, and like I always do this. I like rub my leg or like rub my arm or like hug myself. Like, yeah. I just try to soothe myself in the best ways I know until I can figure it out, because it's tough.
It is. It's like, it's so, especially living in the city, like if I'm walking around, my dad's gonna hate to hear this because he hates that I wear headphones while I'm walking.
And my dad does too.
But like it's the only way.
It's the only way because I don't want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
I want to protect myself in any way I can from the world around me.
And I told myself I was being dramatic. I'm like, oh my God, a siren isn't going to set me off. But what made me realize that I wasn't being dramatic is that it's not the ambulance siren. It's a specific siren. And my brain would only know that if it has, like, subconsciously, it's scared of that sound.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's just very interesting. Yeah, it's a very interesting way, like, our brains are, like, adapting to that.
Yeah.
Like, what I like to call, it's an agreement. It's an agreement that you made that when I hear that, now I'm not safe.
Which is crazy because, like, that's the sound you hear when somebody's coming to save you.
Yeah. And they're here, they're here to save you. They're not here to hurt you.
Totally.
And that's where it was hard for me, because, like, I learned that, I was learning this today. It was like, the police are there when they're trying to protect you. When I had my situation, I think I was more afraid of the police then, and I'm never usually, like, afraid when, like, when police were around me ever, but I was more afraid because when it happened, they took me out of my office with my colleague because he called me and was like, I'm here to protect you. Like, I have the police with me. Just tell me where you are. I didn't know where I was. I had to give the phone to the girl that I was with. They came into the office, they grabbed us, and they stopped us, and they said, get down, because they thought that they heard.
Oh, so this wasn't clear yet?
It wasn't clear. And I thought all clear meant I can get out.
Yeah, that's really bizarre.
And it was the worst experience of my life, and that's why I'm like, when I'm with police or when I am, like, hearing sirens, I'm not safe. And that was the agreement I made.
This is like a lifelong journey.
Yeah.
And like in ways I'm not grateful it happened.
Yeah.
But like I'm grateful that I've been brought to the place where I can heal from this, and then also like heal from so many other things that I never knew how to heal from. So.
It's such a beautiful thing what trauma brings us.
Yeah.
Because it brings us together. It brings change within ourselves, and it brings change within others.
Totally.
And that's why that's why I say what I'm grateful. Like, I'm not grateful that anyone would ever go through this, and I would never want anyone to go through this. But now I have the power that I did, so I can start to prevent this happening to other people.
Totally. People also don't talk, like, people talk about shootings and whatnot, but a lot of people don't talk about, like, themselves after.
Yeah.
And, like, and I don't know, like, even, like, the everyday life things, like, it doesn't have to be us falling to the ground and shaking or whatever.
No.
Like, you have no idea what somebody is ever thinking.
No.
Like, it's not, you hear PTSD and you think something dramatic, and then, like, for me, like, I didn't acknowledge it as PTSD until a doctor told me it was, because I'm like, I'm just standing there and I don't know where I am. But that's not PTSD, because I didn't go to war, and I'm not kicking, crying, and screaming, but it is.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very interesting thing. And it's just, for me, PTSD kind of shifted my idea about suicidal ideations and suicide in general. I used to be the person that thought, like, I think growing up, it was always, like, my parents' thing. Like, we went through things as a family, and, like, my parents got divorced, and the one thing my dad would always say is, like, you're your strongest self.
Mm-hmm.
And with that idea, I'm like, well, if I'm my strongest self, then I would be selfish to take my life away. And those people are selfish that do. They're not.
They are the strongest people,
They're
I
the
think, in the world.
strongest people because they're tired of fighting. Fought so hard.
And to take yourself, I just interrupted you, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
To take yourself out of pain. And I'm not telling you guys to kill yourselves.
No,
do not kill yourselves.
do not.
If you're thinking about it, call.
There's 988, 911.
Oh, yes.
Give me 1 sec. I spoke to someone. So when I had my worst suicidal ideations, I spoke to someone named Rachel. And I texted her. And it's from the Mental Health America. I'm going to give the number now. It's 678-264-6978. I'm getting a little emotional because Rachel has PTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder, meaning she went through multiple traumas, and her PTSD looks different than mine. Kind of like yours.
Yeah.
Your PTSD looks a little different than mine because I have very specific things where I'm like, that is my like that is why. You've had multiple things where you're like, okay, this is multiple, and that's kind of where the difference lies.
Yes.
But it's beautiful because Rachel taught me a lot about the symptoms I was having. And she was saying, like, if anyone were to say this to you, she's like, I was going to give up. And she's like, I was going to do what you were going to do. Because I was at my, like, lowest point. And I'm like, Rachel, I don't think I can go forward. I'm like, I'm tired. And I don't feel normal anymore. I don't feel like a person.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm just a body and my soul is outside and I need to go match my soul.
Yeah.
And I'm tired. And she just said, there's someone out there fighting for you. And if you can't figure out who it is, it's me. And that's what really brought me to, like,
chills.
Yeah. And it was just one of those things where I have, in my job now, I work with a lot of people with PTSD and CPTSD. And I had a employee who went through a very traumatic experience with her sister. And her sister passed away due to an active shooter on her vacation. And this employee, this happened in January. She doesn't really understand the emotions she's feeling right now. And I got a call from her department, and they're like, she's here, but she's not here. She's just looking off. We've tried to talk to her, but she's just not here right now with us. And I'm like, okay, I'll be downstairs in a minute. This isn't my job.
You're fighting for her now.
But I'm here to fight for her. And I remember I saw her and I was like, I pulled her into my office. And one thing I always did when I was trying to calm myself and remember where I was, I would turn on the ocean and I would try to remember a good, like, memory. And my memory is me and my dad in South Carolina on the ocean, and he loses his sunglasses and I'm laughing, and he's just like, of course he would laugh. And that's where I remember, and I always think I'm smelling like the salty air, I'm feeling the sunshine, I'm feeling the cold waves, and I'm hearing people laughing. And I did the same thing with her. I'm like, do you hear people laughing? Do you smell like the salty air? Do you feel the sunshine and the rays on us? After this, we're going to go get ice cream. We're going to go get dinner. Let's have a nice day.
Yeah.
And it kind of brought her back to where she needed to be. And she's like, I don't know how to move forward. And she's like, I'm tired. I'm tired of feeling this way. And I want to give up. And I told her, I know how you feel.
Yeah.
Because I've been here. But I won't give up on you.
Yeah.
So don't give up on me.
It's like knowing that even if you don't know who it is that's fighting for you, like, that just idea is so. And I think that's why people, like, fall to religion. I'm not somebody who's very religious, but a lot of people, like, have their God or their Jesus who is fighting for them, or who they can put some of their grief or responsibility or whatever onto, which, like, I'm jealous because, like, being able to be like, oh, it's in God's hands now would be pretty cool.
Do you think religion was something that you kind of argued with during this time too? Like, you're like, why me? Why did this happen? I think I've
been doing that for a very long time because I've been so sick in my life. Like, I'm like, all right, well, I've been a really good girl, and now I'm being told I'm sick. God can't be real. But then sometimes God, like, I will do anything.
Yeah.
Like, if you're real,
I'll do anything.
Yeah. But what I was just thinking about when you were talking was two things. One, that like someone out there is fighting for you. Like immediately my dad popped into my head.
Yeah.
Like and like the same with him. Like, and that was really hard for me to understand. I think I've told you this, but like I went to treatment. I went to like an inpatient after expressing my suicidal ideations. And I had an amazing therapist there who saved my life, and then she ended up taking her own life. So like the idea that was really hard for me, because I'm like, okay, well the girl was telling me not to kill myself, killed herself, so like what now?
That was my fighter.
Yeah.
My fighter
Yeah.
couldn't fight anymore.
Right. I never understood when people would say to me like, oh, what a great therapist you had, and I'm like, you don't understand how much she was struggling. Her fighting was her taking herself out of that misery.
Yeah.
And it's hard to like say this because I don't want to like make it sound like you should kill yourself, but I was talking to someone who lost a parent to suicide, and I said to them, you know, they never, everybody in their lives had never lost someone to suicide, and I was like, I'm going to say something and you're either going to want to punch me in the face or you're going to understand what I'm saying. I said, your parent who lost their lives is not weak and stronger than I will ever be.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't fight anymore. They were so tired.
Yeah.
And the thing with, you kept saying the word tired, and it
just couldn't find, when you live in that gray matter for so long, or you live in the depressive, anxiety, like focused mind for so long, you just cannot figure out what it is.
No. And it's like, especially with trauma, like, I think people, like, imagine, like, it to be, like, constant flashbacks and stuff, but, like, no, it's just not being able to get out of the clouds.
Yeah.
For me, at least. Like, it was, like, I literally would slap myself in the face and be like, wake up. And, like, there is no waking up until you get to the root of it, and, like, to get to the root of it is really fucking painful.
It is painful. But the painful portions, and this is kind of where I would say what led me to not doing it, was the painful portions were more worth it because I would spend more time with the people I love.
Absolutely.
And I think that's where a difference comes in too, is like sometimes people, from what I've seen and what I've heard, people can identify at all times, or they think, because I've made agreements like this with myself, that you're a burden to the people around you, that you're shameful that you feel this way.
Yeah.
And that they would be better off without you too. And that's not true at all.
If somebody like, the thing is, like, especially, like, I have nobody making me feel like I'm a burden. It's me in my head.
You're right. It's just pushing off the trauma to someone else. And that's not fair to that person. But I will also say this. It's not that person's fault.
No.
And that's one thing that I always hear from people that, like, have experienced a death in the family, a death by a family, like, friend, or, like, someone that has committed suicide that they were close with. Like, I should have done more. I should have known more. Like, you didn't know anything. That person was tired. That person tried so hard. And it's not your fault that happened.
No.
You couldn't love someone more. You couldn't give more. You couldn't do more. Because it was an agreement in their head. And they were like, I'm so tired. I'm going to sleep now. Yeah.
I think that it's also, like, as somebody who's tried to not be alive, like, it's not me who's doing it.
It's my brain. It's like Susie. I always say, well, mine's called Danny. I call mine Danny. I tell your brother because I've had a lot of that. And then there's very close points, and I would say, Danny really wants me to hurt myself today.
Yeah, it's really, and then you're like, And, you know, my therapist used to always say to me, it's not a bad life, it's a bad moment, months, years, whatever.
It's like bad moment.
And then you wake up the next day, you're like, oh my fucking God, how did I...
Yeah.
What? I was, or like the next week, you're like, no, I had such a good day today.
Yeah.
Like, it's so hard, but it's so hard to see it at that time. It's like when I was like in high school and I hated high school and everybody was like, it gets better. I'm like, shut the fuck up. But then like, it gets better.
It does. It does get better.
And
I can promise that to anyone thinking about those things, because right now you're thinking and you're like staying in this spot. But one thing I will say is like trauma and healing and just trying to get better isn't like, it's not going up a staircase. It's kind of like going on a hamster wheel that just kind of runs and rolls and like, you know those hamster balls?
Yeah.
That's what it is.
It's not linear.
That's what healing is.
Healing, grief is not linear. I think grief is like a perfect example of like the stages of grief. There needs to be like stages of trauma, because I never understood grief. Like, I would be fine one day and then I would hear somebody's voice who sounds like somebody I lost and I'm back to square one. And like, that's how it is a trauma too. And it's like, you never know what's gonna, it doesn't have to be a siren or something that looks like something you saw that day. It can be like a smell and you don't even know where the smell is coming from, but for some reason it brings you back there.
It's your subconscious too.
Yeah. And it's just like, it's so much more complicated than TV shows make it out to be.
It is more complicated than that. And I just feel like if anyone resonates with this, I just want them to know that they're not alone.
Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing that, because I think that a lot of people don't talk about it in the way that we're talking about it, in more of like relatable, but like it is relatable.
It's real.
And
we're
like,
being real. Like, I don't care if this goes out on the internet and people know, because I'm giving my real answers as someone that is trying to beat trauma, and as you are.
And like, I wish that I had heard these things.
Me too.
And it doesn't have to be a fucking shooting or losing a friend or something.
It can be anything.
Seriously, like a really bad breakup is traumatic.
It is, especially if that person was someone that you thought your life was going to be
Totally.
with. Or like financial issues, like getting a diagnosis of some sort, like losing a part of your body, like anything, a major surgery, anything can be traumatic to someone.
Totally.
Witnessing something.
And I just feel like healing over anything is just so not linear. It's just like so complicated and not linear. And I feel like talking about this, especially as two people who aren't therapists, like we hear therapists talking about it all the time, but like as people who aren't, like it's good to like talk about the things that don't make sense.
Yeah. And to know that people, any age, any person, any religion, identifications you want to have, this person can have it. You can have trauma. You can have these feelings.
Totally.
And it's normal.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay not to be okay.
It really is. Like, it really is. And like,
you don't always have to be happy.
No. What's your message to somebody out there who's dealing with not even like just any sort of trauma, small, big, or whatever? What do you wish you had done sooner?
That's a great question. The one thing I live by now is I feel the fear and I do it anyway.
I love that.
I feel the fear and I do it anyway. There's a lot of things that are going to be scary in life. There's a lot of things that are going to be hurtful. But if it's good for you and you know it's good for you and you need to do it, feel the fear and do it anyway. Like, that can be taking on therapy. That can be applying to a job. That can be talking to a financial advisor. That can be talking to a different doctor. That can be anything. As long as you know that you did your best and you tried, what's the worst that can happen?
Totally. My biggest fear was like, I didn't want to be in therapy because I didn't want to talk about it, because I was like, okay, well, I'm in this gray area, it's miserable, but then like, if this is miserable, how bad could it be working on it? And like, it was the opposite.
Yeah.
It was like, that was like,
One thing about therapists, though, and I don't know if you would agree with this, I think you have to, like, date them. You have to go through, like, I had to go through a few of them to know that, like, this is the person I like.
Oh, yeah. No, 100%.
It's crazy. Like, and that's one thing I will say is, like, yes, you can do it once, but sometimes you have to do it over and over and over.
100%.
Like, I had a therapist that told me that, like, you aren't safe right now. I'm like, okay, that's not what I need to hear as someone that's traumatized. But thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Like, I really appreciate
really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, after my therapist took her life, like, I went through a bunch, because I'm like, and now my therapist now is amazing. It's a little hard because now my new insurance won't cover her, but we're not going to stop. We will pay out of pocket.
Yeah.
But, like, I had this fear that my therapists were going to go away. Like, I had one, I found a great one, and then she ended up, like, doing something else. And, like, my therapist now, like, if she doesn't answer a phone call, she, like, texts me, she's like, and she told me, I didn't know why she was, like, so on top of things. And then she told me recently, she's like, of course you have a fear of abandonment. Your therapist killed herself. And I was like, oh my God, this therapist, like, she's so, like, it takes a long time to find somebody who's, like, really what you need. Like, she notices things that I don't notice myself.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. So, like, yeah, it does take time to find a therapist. And it's frustrating because you have to tell your story over and over again. But then once you find the one, you're like, oh, thank God.
Yeah. It's so much better. And I think something that I can say with PTSD, too, is that there are signs. There's multiple signs, and it's signs that people don't usually see. But if you feel like you are not who you used to be, it's okay to say that you're not okay. And it's okay to tell someone that you trust and ask them for help.
Totally. I think I was so scared of, like, I was like, the old Nikki's gone, and it's like, the old Nikki.
Do you feel like a part of you died?
Yeah.
Me too.
But, and I, like, grieved that person for a long time.
Yes.
Oh, for sure.
You want to, like, sometimes I'm like, who am I?
Totally. But I started thinking about it more recently as, like, no, I'm just evolved.
Yes.
Like,
I'm just becoming someone that's more beautiful. I like to think about a butterfly.
Yeah.
I was in a cocoon, and then, you know, I went through this evolution, and now I'm like this beautiful butterfly, and I keep flying, and I keep providing this, like, to others. And sometimes my wings don't flap as hard as they should.
Yeah.
But I keep fighting and pushing because I'm a butterfly.
I think about it as, like, I always say, like, I'm a leopard and I get more spots.
I love that.
Because, like,
you're adding more spots.
Exactly. Totally. I'm just different. Like, if I look back to my 6-year-old self, I'm obviously a totally different person than then.
Yeah.
And, like, I wasn't old enough to be able to grieve that, but, like, now, like, I'm going to change. I'm going to be a different person. And that's fucking fine.
Yeah. It's so nice. It's so beautiful to be able to evolve, add spots.
Yeah.
Fight for what you need to.
Well, and on a light note.
Yeah.
But I feel like you should get into the whole social media thing. And
so that's actually really funny that you said that. I'm actually working on a project.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm working on a project. I haven't launched it yet.
Can you tell us anything?
I can.
Okay.
I starting an Instagram account about my journal with PTSD and what I've experienced, and just to kind of let people know that what you're feeling is okay and you're not alone. And it's okay to feel the way you do. You're not crazy. You're not weird. You are okay to feel the way you feel. And I'm going to launch it hopefully in May. May 17th is the 1-year anniversary of what happened. And that's when I'm hopefully going to start this.
Do you have a username?
I do.
Would you like some new followers, maybe?
Sure, I would love some new followers. My Instagram is called Long Live Elizabeth.
Oh, I have chills. I love that.
Because I understand that we're tired. I understand people are so tired, but we all have that long live in us, and that's what we need to push for.
Hell yeah, we do.
Hell yeah.
And the only thing I want to clarify before we go is that, like, and I know I've said this, but, like, you don't have to have gone through something crazy to feel this way.
Yeah. You don't.
You could simply have bad anxiety.
Yeah.
And, like, you're so valid.
Your feelings are valid, no matter how you feel.
If you're suicidal, no, seriously though, if you're suicidal and you don't know why, at the end of the day, you're suicidal.
Yeah.
Like,
it's the way you feel. And you don't need to find the emotions behind it, but I would recommend seeking help.
well, thank you so much for coming on.
Of course.
I'm so proud of you. I know that was hard.
I'm proud of you too.
Oh, thank
We
you.
did this.
It's not easy.
It's not easy.
And we're proud of you.
Yes, we are.
Because if you're watching this, you're alive, you fought, everybody has demons to fight, and that's fucking sick.
Awesome. It is.
Bye, guys.
Bye!